Good morning to all of my excellent subscribers out there, and for all the people who aren't subscribed, good morning to you too, I guess. Merry Christmas to everyone. This isn't a Christmas video, but I'm recording this on Christmas Eve, and I'm basically just wanted one more excuse to wear the Santa hat in a video. So that's what this is. Vice released this article called "The Vtuber Industry: Corporatization, Labor, and Kawaii." So that's one hell of a title, I guess. I wanted to cover it because usually whenever a somewhat mainstream news source covers anything related to anime or weeb culture, things like that, it's usually not great. But I don't think this article is too controversial in that regard. I don't think Hirohei is going to be making a video about it anytime soon. You know, anti-journalist gets destroyed or anything like that. However, I thought it brought up some pretty fascinating points, and some things that I think are worth talking about, at the very least. I think I kind of skimmed through this at one point, but I didn't really look too far into it. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to be talking about it, and I hope we have some interesting discussions in the comments as well, whether you guys agree or disagree with the points that this article makes. So, well, let's just get into it. So, the Vtuber industry, corporatization, labor, and kawaii, why Vtubers have become a hot investment vehicle, and why the space is already consolidating, by Tyler Culp and by Nico Deo. So, let's get right into it. So, I do play video games. I promise I play games, just not this type of game. A tiny animated girl wearing a shark hoodie named Gargura demurs on stream as she maneuvers a 3D shark through the ocean of the video game Maneater. I wanted to play this game so I could wow everyone with my shark skills, but all I've done is make a fool of myself. Her voice sounds dejected, but even her model slumps downward, her eyes closed. For a VTuber, virtual YouTuber, who streams every weekend as a cheery shark girl, the moment is oddly revealing of the person behind the avatar. Gargura is just one of over 60 anime-faced streamers under Hololive, the virtual talent agency wing of the Japanese tech company Cover Corporation, with its animated roster of the characters, with backstories and unique designs. Hololive is Disney if Disney hired Mickey Mouse to stream Minecraft for several hours a day. I guess that's one way of putting it, but alright. While VTubing as a phenomenon has grown sharply in popularity here in the United States within the last couple of months due to Hololive debuting several new VTubers who speak English on stream, it has existed in one way or another for at least a decade, with various vloggers on YouTube or streamers using face animation technology to hide their actual faces. However, VTubing, as most people would know it, started in Japan in 2016 with Kyuznai, a character created by Active 8, Hololive, and another Japanese agency, Niji Sanji, owned by Ichikara Inc., whose creations now dominate much of the corporate VTubing space. Started in late 2017, inspired by the success and attention that Kyuznai generated. I'm not sure if Kyuznai was technically the first Japanese VTuber. I mean, certainly the most popular one for a while, but I'm not sure that's technically true. While anyone can become a VTuber on their own with enough time or money, companies like Cover or Ichikara take up an outsized portion of the interest and audience on streaming sites. Cover started out as a company in the AR and VR business, but moved into the virtual talent sector. Ichikara is a startup designed to support their virtual talent. In 2020, Cover Corporation received 700 million yen in venture capital funding in order to expand into new international markets like Indonesia and the United States. I did not know that's a lot of money. With these much larger resources and workforce, they can develop IP, market it on social media, create merchandise, produce music, and even put on live 3D events. In a bid for everyone's finite attention, VTubing talent agencies can operate at a scale that individual indie VTubers can't. They also have set the terms of engagement for VTubing as an industry rather than a hobby. Okay, fair enough. Cover and Ichikara's methods operate at scale, build a relatively comfortable stable of proprietary characters, and hire the performers to make them come to life on stream through a combination of auditions and private hiring. Through VTubing, these companies have harnessed the entertainment value of both streaming and J-pop idol groups. And a harness they have as streaming monetization and even advertising sales can earn up to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. However, all of this money comes along with all of the weird parasocial engagement and labor issues that two industries regularly deal with. The aforementioned problems are also exacerbated by the fact that VTuber companies enforce quite a lot of secrecy around what they do. While it is standard in VTubing to keep all details around performers' identities behind closed doors for safety reasons, there's also weird blank spaces around international company operations. Because of this lack of publicly available information, their professional discretion may be hiding any number of labor problems. Concrete information about how the business of VTubing works is fleeting, but exists. Hololive's rapid rise outside Asia compared to its competition has made it a valuable source of insight into how VTubers operate. Hololive's Kiryu Coco, who debuted in 2019, is one of the company's largest earners via YouTube Super Chats. Viewers pay real money to highlight their messages in chat to a maximum of $500 to stand out in the sea of comments or to be read on one of many Super Chat reading streams, something traditional streamers don't typically do. According to Playboard's Super Chat worldwide earnings statistic of 2020, VTuber fans are more than happy to donate absurd amounts for brief attention. Super Chats form a cycle where fans get to hear their favorite VTubers acknowledge them with a potentially funny response that gets immortalized in popular clip videos, and then routes back to the VTubers' pseudo-canon and subscriber counts. And it works. Kiryu Coco, along with several other Hololive idols, dominate the charts with millions of dollars in combined estimated earnings. And that is true, actually. Kind of crazily, really. How that money makes it to the streamer is largely obscured by the glare of Hololive's idol sheen. But when you have a large roster of streamers talking online for many hours a week, things slip. According to Coco, 30% of the Super Chat money goes to Google, and the remaining 70% is split between Cover and the streamers. That pay goes on top of the streamers' cut of paid YouTube memberships and the base pay they all reportedly receive. But streaming is about numbers, and only numbers that platforms like YouTube and Twitch deem valuable enough to pay you for. Although there's a level of guaranteed eyes when you're streaming as a cute cat or sheep girl, Hololive VTubers and therefore Cover at large could still be subject to the volatility of streaming as a job for everyone else. Long hours and little pay. Pay is about as opaque as the rest of Cover's business. Many Hololive streamers work full-time and participate in ad deals with companies like Nissan. I guess that was the thing. While other streamers balance streaming as a side job with other work or school. So crazy to think that like Hachima was like studying, like actually doing school while she was being Hachima and doing all that stuff. That's just a weird thought. Knowing this, expected streaming behavior from Hololive VTubers is a mystery. They all adhere to weekly schedules where the time investment varies widely. One streamer might clock out after 2 hours, another might marathon for 10. Corone's Assassin's Creed, I'm assuming they're talking about. And these schedules can repeat throughout the week with special collab and karaoke streams in between. Or Suzuhara Lulu, who did like back-to-back 10-hour streams. Hololive's presence appears largely hands-off. Although the streamers mention having managers, it seems that they determine the length and frequency of their streams on their own. Quotas, limitations, and best practices are never apparent. Like with many streamers, VTubing runs on a willingness to sit in front of a keyboard and camera and talk, mostly as characters for hours on end. Your body is the job. To work as a Hololive VTuber is to be a mascot. The VTubers and their likenesses are leveraged as both talent and product, much like traditional idols. Cover is in the business of selling uncomplicated characters, played by uncomplicated people. We'll come back to that. In a short history, Hololive has had moments where it failed to protect its talent when that illusion was threatened. Several VTubers like Mano Alo, Hitomi Chris, and Yozora Mel have been victims of harassment. All true. Information about these instances is scarce, but it's clear that Cover wasn't prepared to protect their talents, despite running the type of business where parasocial relationships from fans can easily explode into targeted campaigns. Only after a series of incidents which ended in the graduation, a term borrowed from J-pop idol culture, or ended the job for the affected VTubers, Cover said it would take legal action against harassers and introduce a reporting system. This reaction underlines a key question about the capability of a tech company that suddenly shifted to an idol agency, and the ethics of the corporate VTubing industry in general. Definitely we'll talk more about that once I finish getting through this. Cover has already changed its approach to harassment of its talent. Instead of cutting ties, it enacted damage control when its VTubers angered Chinese viewers. In September, Coco and Akai Hato streamed themselves reviewing viewer analytics per region, where they both brought up Taiwan in the discussion. Bilibili users began flooding the VTubers' channels with reports and severe harassment, leading to Cover to respond with 3-week suspensions for both streamers. Still think that was bullshit, by the way. In the English statement, Cover said they were punished for divulging confidential YouTube channel analytics information. 100% bullshit again. In the Chinese statement on Bilibili, however, Cover added that it supports the One China policy. Cover quickly addressed the discrepancy in the statement, saying that we decide to adapt the contents of our statement and the manner of its release accordingly. The company apologized and said it would create a compliance committee to avoid this error in the future, as well as start internal training for what its VTubers can and cannot talk about. Coco and Hato's flub had lasting consequences for Hololive China, a separate group within Hololive. The 6 members saw a rush of harassment reports and apparent boycotting on Bilibili, which led Cover to disband the group entirely. According to some of the members, the group was notified of the closure early on and were allowed to keep their models to stream elsewhere. As is custom with VTuber graduations, all of the members have had their social media accounts wiped or made inactive, and none of them have reappeared at the time of this writing. Okay, so the Hololive China thing was that was a really kind of complicated and like weird situation. I know like one, if not more, of the Hololive China VTubers were like very adamantly like for the Chinese imperialism, for lack of a better word, and like consistently harassed the Taiwanese people. I mean, I guess I didn't know that they were able to keep their models, so I mean that's nice of cover, but I don't know. I mean, the article like portrays them as sort of like victims of Coco and Hato, which I don't think is really fair. I don't think that situation is really the same thing. I guess it's kind of hard to put it. I mean, technically, it's hard to argue that it wasn't because of Hato and Coco. At least, you know, at least technically, but I think it's pretty obviously more because of like China. I don't think it's really fair to sort of attribute the Coco and Hato when it was obviously sort of the bullshit policies, which caused the cover to cut ties with the Chinese branch. But well, I guess it's technically not untrue how the article says it, but it's a little nitpick. It's hard to be surprised at Cover's response to this when so much about VTubing is still new. Once again, it wasn't prepared to handle the consequences of operating a business around global public personas. It has only shown it can react, which raises the question about how many scrapes and bruises or worse will its VTubers suffer as it drags them forward. Corporate VTubing doesn't look a lot better than independent VTubing if the person behind the avatar is just as vulnerable. As Cover tries to figure out this new form of business, its talents get treated like products that it can pull off of store shelves and replace in a few months. Secrecy around the operation allows them the power to appear generous when they don't have any specific information about what happened. While there's precedent for collective action from the VTubers themselves, like the Niji Sanji Resistance, what the fuck is the Niji Sanji Resistance? Most of what we see are solutions to problems explained to us by the company. There could be any number of issues that we don't hear about because Hololive VTubers are largely barred from speaking with press or non-VTuber content creators. Okay, so this paragraph I want to talk about a little bit. I think it has one thing that I agree with, one thing I disagree with. I sort of disagree with the sentiment that Hololive can just treat its talents like store shelves, or what they say, they can replace them or whatever. Like, God, imagine if Kiryu Coco or like Coroni or any of those just like straight up like get disappeared, like just straight up like Cover says, yeah, they did something and we're releasing them. Like, I could not imagine the amount of like uproar that would cause, because they already have such huge fan bases. I don't think that Cover could realistically just like, even if there is any certain problems with them, I don't think Hololive could realistically just like cut them loose, just based on like the current situation, like how established they are. Like there's no way they could just straight up like cut them loose. As again, like I said, I just feel like that's super unrealistic. Like there'd be so much uproar if that were to happen. Realistically, I don't think it would happen really ever. I think the only, I don't want to say problematic, but the only like controversial VTuber I would say is really Coco. But even then, she hasn't really. I mean, she's obviously been doing a lot of non-idol stuff, but I mean, so is all of them. But she's the only one who's really had sort of public controversy, and she never even like mentioned, you know, Taiwan after the after that whole thing. She just straight up just said, yeah, this was an accident. I don't really have any opinions on that. So I don't know. Realistically, would this happen? It's hard to say. It's like going back to the Mono Olive situation, which I'll talk about more about that later on, which I thought was super bullshit, and I thought I hated Cover for a pretty long time after that. I think that they were kind of able to get away with that. We still don't really know a lot about that incident. We don't know if Mono Alo just decided that she didn't want to be part of that anymore, or if Cover just said, yeah, you gotta go. Again, it's still very up in the air. From my understanding, I'm pretty sure that it was Alo herself, or obviously the actor behind her, that said that she wanted to not do it anymore because of the harassment. But it's something to think about. Again, just to reiterate, I don't think that realistically they'd be able to just cut ties with any VTuber, but with someone as new as Alo, who sort of very early on had all this stuff happen, it's kind of different. As for the second point, I think that article brings up a good point, how we don't really know about the inner workings of Cover, and I'll talk more about this later. Again, we don't know like how like they function, like what the pay cut is, how they're treating the talents. So that article does bring a good point, and something that's concerned me for a while is there's so much we don't know about Hololive and the Hololive talents and idols, that it's definitely something to pay attention to. It's something that we should always like sort of be wary of, because we have no idea if there's like, I'm inclined to believe that there isn't anything like this, but with every sort of idol agency, and not that Hololive is a traditional idol agency by any means, but when in every single sort of agency like this, there's always that risk that like there's some like mistreatments, or like the managers like issues with that. Harassment's always an issue. So I think the article brings up a very good point about that, about how little we know and how wary we should be because of that. But let's move on. Also, I probably should have increased this size. I think it's probably better. Okay, so let's move on. This is why the closer that you get to Hololive and how it operates with regards to its talents' well-being, the murkier it all becomes, which is largely ironic given that they spend so much time being publicly viewed. We aren't sure of anything that most people would consider to be important knowing about the job, which is fraught because of streaming is still a job one that requires oversight and incurs tons of risks. Tons of risks. Not sure about that phrasing, but I mean, it is true it's a job like any other, and jobs have risks. But I think streaming generally is one of the safer jobs. Even if the industry were remarkably transparent, the performers themselves are still beholden to tech corporations. Corporations only are ever as good as they feel like being, with many tech companies falling well short of that mark on a good day. Very true. While Cover, Ichikara, or any of the other fledgling VTuber companies may not have the juggernaut status of other media corporations that have been around for much longer, it's clear that we are already in the midst of watching streaming talent and platforms grow with millions of dollars in capital behind them. The dynamic changes because the entertainment product is the bouncing anime girl in front of the stream, not the performer themselves. I'll get back to that. This diverges from traditional streaming, where the value comes from the person being the brand themselves and ostensibly making all of their own decisions. Ninja and Shroud are not owned by Twitch to bring value to it as a platform. When they decided to leave Twitch, that money went with them. This is obviously not the case with VTubers, whose performance feels largely interchangeable so long as the output remains consistent. While having the security of a paycheck and anonymity as a streamer is nice, the fact that your value is largely interchangeable is a huge drawback. Of course, that's also what makes the format so appealing to the companies investing in it. At last, talents can be fungible. I have no idea what that word is. So some things I want to touch on. I definitely do not disagree with I definitely do disagree with this part, or I'll highlight this part. I think that we all probably got into Hololive because of the appeal of like the anime characters and how funny they are. But I wouldn't say that the main draw is because of the avatars. I think the vast majority of the appeal is because the streamers themselves are entertaining and funny. Like, there's a reason why, like, oh, you only watch Hololive because of like the fan service and stuff. It's like, it's such a meme because it's obviously not true. Like, nobody really watches Hololive solely because of like, oh, haha, it's anime. Like, almost everyone, or at least everyone who stays watching or is a consistent fan, almost all of them are because I find this one entertaining and funny, or I like this one's music. I don't think that it's strictly just like the avatar that's the main appeal, at least the main lasting appeal. I think that largely the drawing in appeal is probably the avatar. That's probably true, but I don't think that the lasting appeal is so much the avatar as it is the personalities and things like that. But I think very largely speaking, this article does a pretty good job, and I think it brings up a lot of very good points. Mostly because I think the biggest one is just the how little we know and the sort of secrecy behind it. Maybe secrecy is not the best word, or just like the lack of transparency. Like realistically, we don't know like the split between cover and the actual streamers themselves, like the inner workings of like their business decisions. Like there's so much stuff we don't know about cover and Hololive in general, that it is something to be concerned of. It's always bothered me that like when I give like a super chat, right, and it's like $10, I'd if any more than like $2 of that went to cover, I'd be very frustrated, right? Because $10, right? YouTube takes 30%, that's $7, and then like let's say cover takes like $2, like $5. So like essentially, the streamer only gets like half of what I give them. Like that would, I don't know. At least for me, I would feel kind of cheated about that, because I'm like essentially giving like half of the money to like one corporation or the other, and then the other half is like actually to the person I want to give it to. And I'm not sure how like fair that is. Like, granted, would I realistically be watching this person and feeling inclined to donate money to this person if they weren't like part of Hololive? Probably not realistically. Well, granted, I gave a lot of money to Pika-Me, but that was sort of, I've had a sort of unique circumstance with that. So that has always been a bother for me. Like, if cover's taking like a very large percentage of the money, like, which there probably are, that raises a lot of issues. And because cover is obviously a corporation, and I'm sure it has shareholders. Like, the shareholder isn't gonna really care about the fairness aspect of it. They're just gonna want the company to make more money so they can make more money. So naturally, if there was like a board of, like, if there was like a board for that company and they all vote on decisions, I can only imagine that even less and less money goes to the actual streamer over time. Because I think it's fairly safe to say that, like, you know, a corporate board isn't gonna really give a fuck about fairness. They're just gonna want as much money to go to them as possible. So that's always been something I was fairly worried about, or at least skeptical of. And I did hear the article actually does a very good job of like sort of looking into some of like the lesser known stuff. Like, I've heard about the Yozora Mel stuff and how like she faced harassment because like her manager was like harassing her or something like that. Which even I don't know all the details about. And granted, this article doesn't go too far into specifics about that, but the fact that they talk about it is pretty commendable there. I think one of the few issues I have with this article is how they framed the Coco and Hatsu thing. They sort of kind of blame them a little too much, in my opinion. I think they should probably have talked more about how like China's policies complete bullshit. I mean, would that really? I don't know how much that would really accomplish, but I think it just should be said out of principle. The Mono Alo thing, I think they could have talked about more. I think that cover really got away with that too much, even though there was so much like backlash. I still don't think it was enough. Like, the fact that cover decided to let Alo go, just the fact that they put her on suspension for, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like that, was complete bullshit. That's part of the reason why I'm still so skeptical of cover, because like that was such a bullshit move, and that was so unfair that it just made no sense. Like, she did nothing wrong. She like legitimately was completely in the right there. I don't know if I'm like the correct authority to be talking about this. Like, obviously the highest authority in this whole sort of discussion would be cover. Obviously, cover's not going to say anything though. And then, like, I'm not really sure there's many community figures in sort of the VTuber community that's not the actual VTubers, obviously, or it's sort of like VTuber content creators. We all kind of just like post memes and stuff like that. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk about something a little more serious, something a little more solid. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this article. Cover or each car have not responded to requests for comments. Oh, Japanese translation assistance provided by Anli. Okay, so that was the article. I'll post the link in the description to read it yourself, even though I kind of just read it out loud. But, you know, again, I'll put it in the description. Let me know what you guys think. I thought it brought some good points. Let me know what you guys think. I thought it brought some good points. I think it's something definitely to consider. As someone who's a skeptical enjoyer of Hololive, maybe skeptical is a weird way to put it, but someone who's always been a little bit wary, I think this article does a good job of bringing up a lot of the things I was particularly worried about. But yeah, I think that's it. Again, let me know what you guys think, and we'll end the video there.